So sometimes as locals, we tend to think we know everything about where we came from. At least that's what I used to think for a long time. But then I came across a book by Jim Loomis entitled Fascinating Facts About Hawaii, and I was humbled by what I read. Come to find out, I actually know very little about Hawaii. So I want to share 10 interesting facts about Hawaii that I learned from the book. And maybe you knew these things, maybe you didn't, but if you're interested in the book, you can check it out online or borrow it from your local library. Hawaii was the first state to ban plastic bags at checkout counters. It feels like it's been so long ago since I heard the sound of someone struggling to open a plastic bag to get their groceries in. I don't remember much at the time about the ban, but I do remember that some local businesses got around it by offering reusable bags for 15 cents. But then eventually there was the total ban, and now you have to use your own bags. Unless of course the business is smart enough to cut the handles off the bags and then just tie it. Apparently that's technically not a bag. And we're just on the verge of a full-on single-use plastic ban starting sometime, I think this year. It's been postponed so many times. So you can say so long to those styrofoam plate lunch containers, plastic forks and knives, and start saying hello to some of those soggy paper straws that really don't last. There are no seagulls in Hawaii. Now I admit that my understanding of ornithology is pretty weak. I really had no idea there weren't seagulls in Hawaii. See, the thing is, we have a lot of other ocean birds that I see, but I guess no seagulls. At most beaches, I see pigeons fighting over leftover rice, maybe a few minor birds trying to get that last piece of fried chicken. I guess I just assumed there were seagulls somewhere in the mix. And by the way, Hawaii is a great place for birding. There are a lot of species and sounds. And I never noticed how much of the ambient sound outside in Hawaii is from birds. I mean, yeah, get the occasional car horn or airplane or helicopter or loud moped muffler. But if you listen real carefully, you're gonna hear the sound of birds, and it really is wonderful. They gave Diamond Head its name because 19th century British sailors thought they'd found diamonds on its slopes. They were only calcite crystals. Okay, I didn't know how Diamond Head got its name. I thought it was because it kind of looked like a diamond because it was sharp. Although thinking about it now, it doesn't really make too much sense. I had no idea that there were crystals on Diamond Head. And I guess never really bothered looking, since when you get to Diamond Head Crater, you're pretty much limited to just the trail. But I will say that I'm very appreciative of a business that was inspired by Diamond Head, Diamond Bakery. They just celebrated 150 years in Hawaii. Gosh, I love those Royal Cream crackers. Hawaii isn't the westernmost state, but the southernmost state. Sadly, I didn't know this, but let me explain. The maps I grew up with in school were terrible. Can we please show some love for Hawaii on some of these maps? I remember in school that sometimes Hawaii wouldn't even be on the map, and when it was on the map, it was always crammed off way to the side or off just somewhere in the corner. And it's sometimes hard to tell how far Alaska stretches on the map because of the way that a lot of the maps are drawn, often with this fisheye effect that makes things a lot wider than they seem. I also didn't know that the Big Island had the southernmost point in the US. I thought it would have been either Florida or Texas. Again, they often don't show that on the map. There were 2 attacks on Pearl Harbor. Okay, they definitely did not teach us this in Hawaii history. 2 Japanese seaplanes flew from the Marshall Islands and arrived on March 2nd, 1942. Bombs were dropped in Makiki. I mean, it's hard to imagine that the planes could even make it to Hawaii given the fact that Pearl Harbor was just attacked a few months earlier. They say that there was damage at Roosevelt High School, which is near downtown Honolulu. At least no one was injured though in the attack, but still, pretty interesting. 1959 was a significant year for Hawaii. Statehood on August 21, 1959. James Michener's novel Hawaii was a bestseller, which portrayed Hawaii as a beautiful and exotic place with a rich history. The Boeing 707 was introduced, which meant that flights from the West Coast were 5 hours instead of 11 hours. It amazes me that my parents were alive when Hawaii wasn't a state. With how fast things seem to change, 1959 seems like forever ago, but it's hardly a generation ago. And I realize that when Hawaii turns 100, I'll probably be in my 70s, which seems like forever from now. Also, I never heard of James Michener or his work while growing up in Hawaii. Instead, I learned about him when I was at the University of Northern Colorado because he attended that school and a library is named after him. I made a video about the book Hawaii if you're interested, and I highly recommend it. It's 1,000 pages, but pretty entertaining. And with the introduction of faster aircraft, flight times were quicker. I mean, can you imagine an 11-hour flight to Hawaii from California? Oh my gosh, we definitely get a lot less tourists. Hawaii is the 40th most populated state despite being the 4th smallest state in land area. New Hampshire, Maine, Montana, Rhode Island, Delaware, South Dakota, North Dakota, Alaska, Vermont, and Wyoming have less people. We talk a lot about Hawaii's population, that magical 1.4 million people figure. It seems so tiny compared to the mainland, but I guess I forget that people are often spread out on the mainland with only heavy pockets of densely populated cities. The fact that we have more people than Alaska or Montana just baffles me, considering how large those states are. And it puts it into perspective that we're a tiny state with a lot of people, which makes it feel sometimes a little crowded. Why are there so many wild chickens on Kauai? When Hurricane Eva struck Kauai in 1982, the local chicken coops were destroyed. The descendants of those birds are roaming around the island. Man, Kauai has a lot of chickens. On my last visit to Kauai, I really noticed how many chickens there were walking around. Because on Oahu, we have some chickens, but most of them are in rural areas like where I grew up. See them making noise in the yard. But on Kauai, the chickens are everywhere. My wife even got me a poipu shirt with a chicken on it. And I had no idea that the reason why there were so many chickens walking around was because of the hurricane in 1982. Because when I think about hurricanes on Kauai in particular, I think of Hurricane Iniki. And I remember I had family on Kauai at the time and the damage was pretty bad. I mean, even on Oahu, our house got damaged and the roof was bouncing. Why Duke Kahanamoku is so great. He won 3 gold medals and 2 silver medals in the Olympics, and of course popularized surfing. I don't remember learning much about Duke Kahanamoku in school. I know that there's a statue in Waikiki and that he was a really good surfer before surfing could be a profession. But I had no idea what an amazing athlete he was. I mean, we kind of just had the Tokyo Summer Olympics, and I'm blown away by these Olympic athletes. The dedication it takes to compete and be one of the best in the world is impressive. And the fact that he won 3 gold medals and 2 silvers is just amazing. I mean, granted, I'm sure the competition was very different back then. Maybe there weren't a lot of training programs and it wasn't taken as seriously as a competitive sport, but still, the fact that he could compete and be competitive enough to win 3 Olympic gold medals, man, that's amazing. So those are some interesting facts that I didn't even know about having grown up in Hawaii. And it just goes to show that you can always learn about where you come from and that each place has its own unique and colorful history. So thanks for watching and aloha.